As someone with sensitive guts, I look at foods and I immediately start calculating, like, what's this going to do to my inside? But I'm also often very drawn to those exact same foods.
Well, that's a problem for a lot of people.
And here's something I didn't know until recently. A lot of foods that cause digestive issues contain compounds called FODMAPs. And that's where Fodzyme comes in.
Fodzyme is a tasteless powder you sprinkle right into your food, and it helps break down FODMAPs, the hard-to-digest components in food that can cause bloating, gas, and pain before they cause discomfort.
And I was making a salad the other day, and it was like half raw cabbage. So what did I do? Sprinkled a little Fodzyme on there.
It makes digestion easier, so you can eat more of what you love. Think of it like Lactaid, but for garlic and onions and wheat, beans, cheese, other common foods with FODMAPs.
Every customer gets access to a free consultation with a registered dietitian who can help you figure out how to use Fodzyme with your specific trigger foods.
We're excited to partner with Fodzyme and offer you 30% off your first order when you go to icaneatagain.com/oddities.
That's icaneatagain.com/oddities for 30% off your first order.
Finally, you can enjoy your favorite foods without the pain. Just go to icaneatagain.com/oddities.
You have one new message. Translating. Disney and Pixar's Hoppers is now available on Disney+.
You could say that again.
Critics are calling it Pixar's funniest movie ever and a wildly entertaining ride. Blizzard Potato. It's certified fresh and verified hot.
Now we party.
This is incredible!
Wow, I am clearing the rest of the day.
Disney and Pixar's Hoppers, now available on Disney+. Rated PG.
The Box of Oddities.
So I think you should get an eye patch. You'd look like a pirate. You could be the Dread Pirate Cat.
Oh, once again, the Dread Pirate Cat returns.
Let's bring back the Dread Pirate Cat. All right, so explain what happened. What happened?
I forgot that I was wearing my glasses, and I dove into the pool, and I damaged my eyeball.
Yeah. It's all, I don't know if you've seen any of the pictures on the social medias, but Kat's entire eye on one side of her pupil is completely red.
It's just blood.
It's pretty cool looking, I gotta say.
I totally understand why people would get their whites tattooed, because it looks rad.
It does.
It is very uncomfortable, though, and it's hard to read.
It's uncomfortable, it's hard to read, but it's badass. Mm-hmm. So you're going to go see a doctor.
I am.
We'll update you on that, but you do feel a little better, right?
I do.
Okay. And so because of that, I thought it would be fun to, well, first of all, we need to give you some time to heal, but it would be fun to look back on a previous episode where we talked about eye damage from diving into swimming pools, but I couldn't find anything.
Oh, so weird.
I know. But I did find, so I started searching the word eyes, and I found this episode. It's a bit of a stretch, but it's a pretty interesting episode. People who had near-death experiences and saw their life flashing before their eyes.
Wow, that is a stretch.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate your efforts, though.
Yeah, and it's an interesting episode. Let's do it, shall we? A film that you and I really do enjoy, though. We both enjoy it very much. And we've seen it a few times over the years. It's Defending Your Life with Meryl Streep and Albert Brooks.
I love that movie. Meryl Streep is a queen.
Oh, she is. And Albert Brooks at really one of his funniest moments. In that movie, Albert Brooks is hit by a bus on his birthday and goes to some place in the afterlife called Judgment City. And there he undergoes a life review in front of a panel of judges.
Which includes Rip Torn.
Who is wonderful.
Wonderful.
And I was scrolling around the other day, and that came up as a suggestion on one of my queue lists. And it got me thinking about the phenomenon of life reviews, or as other people refer to them, my life flashing before my eyes.
I think that's such a cool concept. And the fact that she would get an opportunity to go like, whoa. See, my thought process there was not to be mean,
right,
but to help that person, or, whatever it would have been.
According to Wikipedia, the life review or flashback at death refers to a phenomenon widely reported as occurring during near-death experiences, it seems like a person will rapidly see the totality, or at least much of their life history. Many of those who have had near-death experiences note they underwent a review of their life in which the meaning of their life was presented to them, but also how their life affected other people, as well as an awareness of their thoughts and feelings of the people who they were affecting in their life.
See, I've not heard about that. Of course, I've heard of your life flashing before your eyes, but I kind of always thought of it as just being like, a brain thing.
They have reported it as being like a three-dimensional panoramic experience where they're almost observing it from a third-person perspective.
Like VR?
Yeah, like VR. And not only do you feel the feelings you were feeling, but you feel the feelings of the people that you were interacting with.
Interesting.
According to Wikipedia, Bruce Grayson, in his book, Psychology of Religion and Spirituality, he describes the life review as a rapid revival of memories that sometimes extend over the person's life. The memories are described as being in 3D and include a panoramic quality. And according to Jeffrey Long in his book, Near-Death Experiences, Evidence for Their Reality, the experience of a life review is often described from, as I mentioned, a third-person perspective. That's, to me, really interesting.
Yeah.
Again, according to Jeffrey Long, these experiences are lucid and organized while unconscious, comatose, or clinically dead. Here's a quote from his work, from a person who actually experienced a life review in a near-death experience. Quote, "I went into a dark place with nothing around me, but I wasn't scared. It was really peaceful there. I then began to see my whole life unfolding before me like a film projected on a screen from babyhood to life. It was so real. I was looking at myself, but better than a 3D movie, as I was also capable of sensing the feelings of the persons I had interacted with throughout the years.
Wow.
I could feel the good and the bad emotions that I made them go through." So we got that to look forward to. According to research, those who have had near-death experiences, many of them, a pretty high percentage of them, have experienced this type of phenomenon. Of course, this has intrigued people for generations, but is it real? Do you think it's possible?
I don't know.
Or is it just a strange trick of the brain when it's becoming deprived of oxygen?
Well, I mean, I think, well, you know how I feel.
Yeah. There are tests that could be done that would go a long way in showing that it very well could be real. The most obvious would be to map the brainwave patterns through an EEG as a person dies. And not just a near-death experience, but like a person that actually dies. An actual clinical permanent death.
Okay.
If after a person dies, brainwave activity is still present in the areas of memory recall, that would suggest that the person is indeed still thinking and recalling memories from the past, possibly experiencing a life review. And we certainly have the technology to do this, and we have for decades, but the problem is you have to be set up and ready to roll before the person actually dies. And being able to project exactly when that person is going to die and getting that person to agree would be no easy feat.
Right. So often in those moments before death, we're instead in that pesky time period of trying to make them not dead.
Yeah. And also the patient is going, "Oh, poor me, I'm going to die."
Ugh.
Selfish.
Annoying.
But the BBC reports just a few months ago, medical professionals were working on an 87-year-old patient who had developed epilepsy. They hooked him up to measure his brainwave activity with an EEG, but during the process, unexpectedly, the man suffered a fatal heart attack. This is the first time that science has had this amount of scientific data of a dying human brain. And what they discovered was, for about a minute, 30 seconds before the patient died and 30 seconds after, the patient's brain waves follow the exact same patterns as dreaming or recalling memories. The team published in a study in Frontiers on Aging Neuroscience that brain activity of this sort could suggest that a final recall of life may occur in a person's last moments.
Right. And since one of the things that you said that people recall is not just how they were feeling, but the feelings of those around them. I mean, generally we know how we make people feel, right?
Yeah. Well, I think probably for the most part.
If you do something nasty, I mean, people go like, "Oh no, I wish they hadn't done that," and you kind of get that vibe. So I guess that makes sense that you would think about your life and how you made people feel.
But the weird thing is that the brainwave activity continued 30 seconds after the heart stopped beating. Dr. Ajmal Zamar, one of the co-authors of the study, says they accidentally got the first ever recording of a dying human brain. He told the BBC, quote, "This was actually totally by chance, and we did not plan to do this experiment to record these signals. So does this prove that the brain is experiencing a life recall, or the person's life is flashing before their eyes? And if so, are they happy memories? Are they bad memories? What would the deal be?" Dr. Zamar, again from an article in the BBC, said, quote, "If I were to jump to the philosophical realm, I would speculate that if the brain did a flashback, it would probably like to remind you of good things rather than bad. But what's memorable would be different for every person." Dr. Zamar, right now, he is a neurosurgeon at the University of Louisville. And according to him, the data suggests that 30 seconds before the patient's heart stopped supplying blood to the brain, the patient's brain waves like that immediately follow the same patterns that are present when experiencing high cognitive demanding tasks like concentrating, dreaming, or recalling memories. It was strange because even before the heart stopped, it immediately shifted to this type of brainwave activity 30 seconds before it died, and then continued for 30 seconds after.
Okay, but the brain and the heart are so intertwined in how they work. I mean, the brain would know, right, that it was not going to be sending certain instructions to the heart anymore, right?
Maybe. I don't know. That in itself is an intriguing thought.
And the heart has to pump blood to the brain for the brain to keep working. So it would make sense that if the heart stopped, that the brain would continue for a bit until the blood stopped doing its thing. I mean, death is, yes, when the heart stops, but your brain still does stuff until it stops getting the blood that it needs to function.
That's true, but what they're saying is that this is the first documented case that it's not just random brainwave activity. It's the type of activity one sees when they're doing a highly complicated task like concentrating or remembering thoughts.
So your brain's just saying, okay, it's time to get into life review mode.
I don't know. Could be. And as I mentioned, the activity continued for 30 seconds after the heart stopped beating, and that's a point which a patient is typically declared dead. Dr. Zamar said, quote, "This could possibly be a last recall of memories that we experienced in life, and they're playing through our brain in the last seconds before we die. But one certainly can't definitively say that this is true based on a study of one. So it really doesn't answer the question, but it does pose another one. As you were just saying, when exactly does life end? We've always considered it being when the heart stops beating, but should it be when the brain stops functioning?"
Absolutely.
It's highly unlikely that we could gather enough case studies to flesh out exactly what's going on because of the rarity of this situation. However, though, in 2013, there was a study that was carried out on healthy rats. Yeah, you're not going to like this. But it might give us a bit of a clue. The researchers discovered that there were high levels of brainwave activities at the point of death until 30 seconds after the rat's hearts stopped beating, exactly like the findings in the epileptic patient. Dr. Zamar said that the similarities between the studies are, quote, "astonishing." He has hope now that because of this study, this one study on the 87-year-old epileptic patient, that perhaps it might open doors to more of the same types of research. Maybe now that we have seen what we can get with this type of study, that would encourage other people to agree to be studied in their final moments and expand the database.
I guess my question is, for why?
That doesn't interest you?
I mean, whether or not you think about your life before you die,
Yeah.
I figure probably you do.
Well, it's not that as much as it is you're unconscious and your heart has stopped beating.
Just to me, it seems like a lot of rats have to pay for something that to me seems pretty obvious.
It's science, sweetie.
We'll do it on people.
That's what they want to do.
I know, but you know they're going to do it on rats too.
I don't know that. You're just speculating now.
Well, you're speculating.
That's my job. Dr. Samar said, I think there's something mystical and spiritual about this whole near-death experience. And findings like this, it's a moment that scientists live for. My source material, the BBC, Wikipedia Science Direct, and Missouri State Medical Association website. Some fascinating reading there.
Sure.
The Box of Oddities with Kat and Jethro Gilligan Toth.
Hey, we got this email. Kat and Jethro, just a quick thank you. I heard you mention quince on your show a while back and decided to order a few things for my mom for Mother's Day.
Aww.
She absolutely loved them and has already asked me where I found the brand. So thanks for accidentally making me look much more of a thoughtful daughter than I probably am. And yeah, we love quince. I'm wearing my quince shorts right now.
And making our way into summer, those shorts are going to be an essential for you.
Quince has beautiful everyday pieces like 100% European linen pants, dresses, and tops with styles starting at $32.
And the really important thing for us is Quince works directly with ethical factories. So you're paying for quality, not for a brand name.
And everything at Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than similar products.
I have a set of Quince linen pillowcases on my bed right now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it makes me feel like such a fancy lady.
It's time for a new summer wardrobe. Elevate your wardrobe. Go to quince.com/oddities for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns.
Now available in Canada, too.
Woo.
That's QUINCE.com/oddities for free shipping and 365-day returns.
Quince.com/oddities.
If you've ever blasted synth beats from your boombox or burned CDs for your besties, this one's for you. As people get older, much like their music tastes, their health needs change. AG1 is the simple daily health drink designed to deliver over 75 essential daily nutrients and pre- and probiotics to support energy, digestion, and mood, so you can make the most out of every decade and dance break. Learn more at drinkag1.com.
And now, that thing in the middle.
Adeline and Augusta Van Buren were two very forward-thinking women for 1916. They became the first women to travel across the entire United States of America on 2 solo motorcycles. They made it even though they were arrested 2 times, not for driving motorcycles, but for wearing pants.
We get an email, curator at theboxofoddities.com, and I thought this was really fun because the email is not really about Box of Oddities so much. It's about The Shallow End.
Our new podcast that's coming right up.
This email came from Kelly, and they said, I sent this article a while back, but maybe it's more suited for The Shallow End, you guys. Ooh. A man in my local area managed to blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to share it, but it's so amazing. And yes, you should absolutely talk about it on The Shallow End. And I cannot wait.
Let me see what it is. Oh, yeah, that's perfect. The Shallow End with Schnebley and Toth. We're rolling that out very soon. We're just finishing up post-production on the first few episodes.
Thank you so much, Kelly. And if you've got a suggestion for The Shallow End, for now, you can send it to curator at theboxofoddities.com. Soon they'll have all their own stuff set up.
Yeah,
but for now,
soon.
we're just doing it from here.
And it's stories about people who've done really stupid things. At the very least, it'll make you feel better about yourself.
It's magical.
This episode is brought to you by Fox One. Watch all 104 matches of the FIFA World Cup live in 4K for just $19.99 a month with 3 days free. Build your own multi-view, choose up to 3 streams, and follow player spotlights. Stay on top of every moment with live stats, highlights, and instant replays. The FIFA World Cup, streaming live on Fox One. Offers are subject to change. See fox.com for complete terms and conditions.
Need a laptop that's built to perform and designed to last all day? Select Windows 11 PCs starting at $499.99 are now at Best Buy. Learn more at bestbuy.com. Best Buy. Imagine that.
Halfway through and you're still awake. You must be listening to The Box of Oddities.
Okay. John George Haigh, also known as the acid bath murderer. I had to send you a message and be like, have you talked about the acid bath murderer? And you were like, yeah, I don't think so.
I would have remembered that.
Yeah. So that's why I felt like it was okay to just like throw it out there right away, because you already knew I was considering it. Anyway, John George Haigh was born into an affluent conservative family in Yorkshire in 1909. He was brought up in a fanatically religious household. His parents, John Robert Haigh, and his wife, Emily, were so strict. Bible stories were the only form of entertainment allowed in their home. Participating in sports was forbidden. And according to Haigh Sr., the world was evil, and the family needed to keep themselves separate from the rest of the world.
Well, I can get on board with the world being evil part, but we still need to go to the store.
Well, despite all this, Haigh became very proficient at playing piano, which he learned at home, obviously, because he couldn't go outside to learn it. And he won a scholarship to Queen Elizabeth Grammar School in Wakefield, and then to Wakefield Cathedral, where he became a choir boy. After school, he was an apprentice to a firm of motor engineers. After about a year, he left that job and took jobs in insurance and advertising. But at 21, he was dismissed after being suspected of stealing. In 1934, Haigh married Beatrice Hammer. And the marriage really didn't last long because Haigh was arrested in October and sent to prison for fraud.
Can we stop just for a moment?
Yes.
And really enjoy the name Beatrice Hammer?
It's a wonderful name.
Oh, I love that name. All right, back to the story.
Okay. While he was incarcerated, Beatrice gave birth to a baby who she gave up for adoption. And she only saw her once husband once more after they got together after he got out of jail. And he said, our marriage wasn't real anyway, because I was already married when we got married, so it didn't count. Of course, that wasn't true, but he was a pathological liar. So after jail, he moved to London, where he became a chauffeur, and he was arrested a few more times for various fraudulent doings, like buying cars with bad checks, or he would pretend to be a lawyer, or he would frequently sell fraudulent stock shares from the estates of his dead quote-unquote clients. And eventually he was caught when someone noticed that he had misspelled his fake name.
No.
Like, can you imagine you're buying stocks from someone and all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, shouldn't you know that your name is Guildford and not Guilford? And anyway, so he was sentenced to 4 years for fraud once again. Now, as a young person, Haigh's father had told him that when he was a kid, he became blemished with a blue mark on his forehead, which was a result of him sinning.
This was the father.
This was the father.
Happened to the father.
Yes.
Okay.
And he said that it was a sign of the devil due to the slightest wrongdoing. And so, of course, Haigh grew up being terrified of this mark of the devil, and he was told his whole childhood that his mother had never had such a mark because she was an angel. So as Haigh got older and started, this is young Haigh, and started to partake in these wrongdoings and wasn't receiving a mark from the devil, he kind of started to think that he was invincible. Like, no one's noticing these things that I'm doing, right? We're also pretty sure that he had narcissistic personality disorder. So, you know. Anyway, so Haigh's in prison, and he came to the realization that, yeah, he'd been making the wrong choices, and that going forward, he had to make some changes. And that meant not leaving his victims alive.
No. No, you're going the wrong way
Yeah.
on this, Haigh.
He became obsessed with French murderer Georges Alexandre Surratt, whose signature had been dissolving his victims in sulfuric acid. So during his free time, he was doing some reading and devised his own method of dissolving bodies in various forms of acid.
If acid is a hobby for you, that's a warning sign.
He began practicing on mice. See, I knew I didn't like this guy. Haigh was freed from prison once again and became an accountant with an engineering firm. So how does this felon keep getting jobs, like good jobs? But it's said that he was pretty decent to look at and, like so many psychos, charming as all get out.
Well, that's what they said about H.H. Holmes.
Yeah.
Was that he was the most charming of men right before he bludgeoned you to death and burned you in his basement.
So while tootling about town, being a pathological liar, Haigh bumped into one of his many former employers, William McSwan. And McSwan introduced Haigh to his parents, Donald and Amy. Now, McSwan worked for his parents by collecting rents on their London properties, and Haigh became very envious of this guy's lifestyle. Which rent collection really doesn't seem like the life to me, but, you know, I'm not here to judge. That is exactly what I'm doing here. Yeah, I'm judging this guy.
You are, and I approve.
He's garbage.
Well, he's an acid guy.
All right, so Haigh lured McSwan into an abandoned basement and hit him over the head with a stick or something, I'm not sure. And using his newfound favorite disposal method, he put McSwan's body into a 40-gallon drum and filled it with concentrated sulfuric acid. He then took over McSwan's landlord duties. He told the McSwan's family that McSwan had taken off to avoid being drafted, because remember, it's wartime.
This is exactly what Holmes did, H.H. Holmes. He took over the couple's drugstore in Chicago.
Very similar.
Wow.
Haigh also lived on the McSwan's property and took control of his money. 2 days later, McSwan was unfortunately acided down, boiled down, if you will, into a, he was liquefied.
Yeah.
And Haigh poured his remains down a manhole. Now, eventually, the elder McSwans became very suspicious as their son had not returned home, even though the draft was over. So Haigh invited them over, saying that their son had returned, and he was very excited to see them. You can see where this goes, right? You're figuring out. Yeah. So it was the barrels for them. And Haigh then stole their pension checks and sold the Swans' family properties. Haigh is now living the life of luxury. But the McSwan money wasn't going to last long, so he moved on to his next targets, Dr. Archibald Henderson and his wife, Rose. Now, he had feigned interest in a house that these two were selling, and he was invited to their apartment to play piano for their housewarming party. So while he's playing piano and entertaining this family, he toodles about their house to see what he could steal. One of the things he found was a revolver, and then he invited the Hendersons over to discuss the selling of their property, and it was the same acid bath situation as the McSwans, after being shot, by the way, with their own stolen gun.
Did he dump them down a manhole too?
Oh, yeah. He then forged a letter with their signatures and sold all of their possessions, except for their car and their dog, which he kept. Now, it's 1949, and Haigh has rented a larger warehouse on Leopold Road with more space for his drums. He meets 69-year-old Mrs. Olive Duran Deacon. Olive had been an active suffragette in her day, even spending a night in jail after throwing a brick through a window.
Votes for women!
Votes for women! She was also very creative and a bit of an inventor, and she had this idea to produce a patent for artificial fingernails, because it was 1949 and it was post-war, and women wanted to feel a little bit of glamour. And so she shared this idea with Haigh. Now, Olive had the money to move forward with such a project. She was the wealthy widow of a solicitor named John Duran Deacon. And since Haigh was calling himself an engineer and showed interest in her idea, he invited her over to his place to discuss it.
Oh.
Yep.
It was the barrel for her,
It was
wasn't
the barrel for her.
Oh, no.
2 days later, Olive's friends became concerned she was missing. And of course they did. She sounds awesome. Anyway, Haigh offers to bring Constance Lane to report her friend missing to the Popo, which is so arrogant. Like, oh, yeah, no, I'll just take you. Anyway. So Constance is telling the police about her missing friend, and a lady police sergeant becomes pretty suspicious of Haigh's mannerisms. He's acting a little sus. So looking into him, they discovered that Haigh had recently sold some jewelry. And also, when they investigated his attaché case, it contained some dry cleaners receipts for a fine fur coat that Olive had owned, which seemed weird that he would be dry cleaning this woman's coat. In addition, police also found papers referring to the Hendersons and the McSwans, both of these couples now missing. It all seemed a bit much. So they went to Haigh's new, larger warehouse that he'd rented, behind which there was a rubble pile. And an observant pathologist spotted what he recognized as a couple of human gallstones. Then, with more digging about, they found a set of false teeth.
Acid won't dissolve gallstones?
I guess not.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. Apparently, Haigh hadn't made sure that his new fancy warehouse had a drain for his disposal needs, so he just dumped the barrel remains out back.
Well, he was getting lazy.
Inside the workshop, of course, police found a large metal drum and beside it several containers of acid, a revolver, and gloves and an apron spattered with acid. So Haigh was arrested and charged with murder. Haigh then confessed that he had killed Duran Deacon, the McSwans, and the Hendersons, as well as 3 other people, a young man called Max, a girl from Eastbourne, and a woman from Hammersmith, though these claims couldn't be substantiated. He was asking a lot of questions about the likelihood of someone being released from a local psychiatric hospital if they'd been charged with murder and deemed insane. So it was really no surprise when, at the trial, Haigh pleaded insanity. He also claimed that in addition to the murders, he'd been drinking the blood of his victims.
Was he really drinking the blood, or was this part of his insanity defense?
Yeah, there's no evidence that he was drinking the blood, and most people are on board with this was just part of his wanting to be able to plead insanity. That he was building a case for his insanity, if you will. On July 18, 1949, 4,000 people crowded into the courthouse hoping to get a seat. This case was wild. Haigh had no money to pay for his defense, so News of the World did a deal with him and offered to pay for his counsel if he would provide them with an exclusive.
I had no idea that News of the World went back that far.
Yeah.
This is the same paper that broke the news on Bat Boy.
That's correct. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Maybe it's a different News of the World. I don't know. But during the trial, the editor of the Daily Mirror was sentenced to a 3-month prison term for contempt because he had described Haigh in the newspaper as a murderer while the trial was still underway. And he was only a suspected murderer, right? Now, because Haigh had initially inquired about getting released from this psychiatric hospital, it appeared as though he was thinking of using insanity to get him off the hook. And it took the jury only 15 minutes to come to a conclusion.
Now, it probably took them 4 minutes to get to the jury room.
That's right.
And
most of them had to pee.
Right. Go outside, have a butt first, and then come back in. So they had their minds made up.
They knew what was up. Haigh was found guilty. The judge asked Haigh if he had anything to say for himself, and he said nothing at all. So he was sentenced to death. According to History Press, Haigh's last few days were spent making sure that he was known as this clever vampire with the perfect crime, which is a great example of how you can be charming and clever and still a fucking idiot. Because you didn't commit the perfect crime, dum-dum.
You're in jail.
You're a murderer and you're on death row. Before his execution, he wrote, "When I first discovered there were easier ways to make a living than to work long hours in an office, I did not ask myself whether I was doing right or wrong. that seemed to me to be irrelevant. I merely said, this is what I mean to do.
Wow.
So on August 10, 1949, Haigh was hanged by executioner Albert Pierrepoint. Now, Albert Pierrepoint had a link in Haigh's Wikipedia article, and I was like, weird that the hangman would have a link, right? So I went to check him out. And apparently, Albert Pierrepoint was an English hangman who executed between 435 and 600 people in his 25-year career that ended in 1956.
Wow, he was prolific.
He was prolific, but he wasn't just a hangman. He was of hangman lineage. His father had been a hangman, and his father's father had been a hangman. And since a very young age, Albert knew that the hangman's life was for him.
Wow.
And I just thought that was really interesting. So there you go. John George Haigh, an idiot and a murderer, and also Albert Pierrepoint, apparently a very prolific hangman.
Well, that was brutal.
Yeah, it was a little rough.
Yeah, that was, wow. So how many in total did he kill? I didn't count them up while you were naming them off.
6 confirmed, and then he claimed to have 3 others.
Okay, all right, wow.
I got most of my information from thehistorypress.co.uk, allthat'sinteresting.com, crimeandinvestigation.co.uk, and of course, Wikipedia. I really appreciate your being patient with me.
You're doing good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My face hurts.
Your face hurts. And we appreciate you and your patience while Kat's eyeball heals. We'll be back on Wednesday with a brand new episode.
Oh, you won't even believe it.
It's going to be so new. Don't you love the smell of a new episode?
I'm going to go to bed.
All right, Kat's going to go to bed. We'll see you next time.
Until then, keep flying that freak flag.
And fly it proudly, you beautiful freak.
And so, let it be known that the Box of Oddities belongs to you, and its fate is in your hands. The Box of Oddities commits to the telling of stories of the strange, the bizarre, the unexpected. We wish to offer our deeply felt gratitude and appreciation for your patronage. TheBoxOfOddities.com. Copyright 2026, all rights reserved.
Do you find it hard to sleep at night? Then the Sleep Cove podcast can help you. Hi, I'm Christopher Fitton, the voice and clinical hypnotherapist behind Sleep Cove. Sleep Cove features sleep hypnosis, meditations, and bedtime stories, all designed to help those of you who struggle at night to achieve a restful and peaceful night's sleep. Search for Sleep Cove on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and see why Sleep Cove helps millions of people sleep deeply all night long.
Every Sunday, we cover the week's tech news on This Week in Tech. Hi, this is Leo Laporte from the Twit Podcast Network, inviting you to join me, Christina Warren, Richard Campbell, and Harry McCracken as we talk about one of the biggest weeks in tech ever. There was the SpaceX IPO, there was the amazing Fable tabling, and, of course, way back Monday, Apple announced a new Siri. We talk about it all this week on This Week in Tech. You'll find it at twit.tv or wherever you get your podcasts.